Over the last few videos, we've seen a pretty pessimistic picture of world politics. The trap of the prisoner's dilemma, the dangerous brinksmanship of the game of chicken, the fragile trust of the stag hunt. These models show us how rational actors can end up in conflict and failure. And this raises an important question. If these dilemmas are so powerful, why isn't global politics defined by constant breakdowns and conflict? Why do countries sign trade deals, form lasting alliances, and follow international law? The answer lies in one of the most powerful ideas in game theory, the simple fact that in the real world, the game is never really over. Let's say you're assigned a group project in a large general education course. You're randomly grouped with students you've never met from different majors, and you know you'll likely never have to work with them again. Now ask yourself, how much effort are you going to put in? Maybe you'll do your part, but maybe you'll hedge a little. After all, if no one else shows up prepared, why should you carry the weight? Now imagine a different scenario. You're assigned with a group of people you know. Maybe you're in the same major, maybe you've had classes together, and maybe you'll be working with them again in the future. Chances are your choices change. You're more likely to contribute because this group isn't just about this project. It's about your reputation, your relationships, and what comes next. Or think about something as simple as getting a coffee. If you're at your local coffee shop where the barista knows your name and you come in every morning, you're polite, you tip well, and you treat people decently. But if you're at a busy tourist cafe you'll never visit again, you might be less patient, less generous, or less invested, and they're less likely to be invested in you. What's the difference? In one case, your actions are part of a longer relationship. In the other, it's a one-shot interaction. You'll never see the other people again. And that brings us to a powerful idea in game theory: the shadow of the future. The shadow of the future refers to how much players value future interactions when making choices today. The longer the shadow, the more the players value future payoffs, and the more likely they are to cooperate in the present. When you know you're going to keep playing the same game with the same people over and over again, cooperation becomes more rational. Why? Because you can reward good behavior and punish bad behavior in the future. That logic is key to unlocking cooperation in international relations, especially in situations that look like the prisoner's dilemma or the stag hunt. And to see how powerful that logic can be, let's look at a famous experiment, one that changed how political scientists think about cooperation. In the early 1980s, political scientist Robert Axelrod wanted to understand how cooperation could emerge even in a world where self-interest, fear, and mistrust made defection seem like the far safer bet. So he turned to game theory and ran a tournament. Axelrod invited scholars from a variety of fields, economics, political science, psychology, even computer science, to submit strategies for playing an iterated prisoner's dilemma. Each strategy would face off against every other strategy in a series of 200 games, and their goal was to earn the highest points total possible over time. Some of the strategies were complicated, designed to detect patterns, punish defection, or manipulate opponents. Others were aggressive, defecting constantly or defecting as soon as they were betrayed once. Some were nice, some were deceptive, some were even designed to exploit others' generosity. But the strategy that won Axelrod's first tournament, and then won again in the second round, was surprisingly simple: tit-for-tat. Start by cooperating, then do whatever the other player did in the previous round. If they cooperated last round, you cooperate this time. If they defected last time, you defect this time, once. If they return to cooperation, so do you. Tit-for-tat doesn't try to trick anyone. It doesn't hold grudges. It's clear, predictable, and easy to read. And that clarity was its greatest strength. Axelrod found that the most successful strategies in repeated games followed the same four core tenets. First, they were nice, meaning they would never defect first. They started by cooperating, signaling their good intentions. But they were also retaliatory, meaning they would punish defection immediately. And they were forgiving, meaning they returned to cooperation if other players did. They were willing to forgive past defection and cooperate with their opponent again, preventing both players from getting locked into an endless cycle of revenge. Finally, they were clear, meaning their behavior was easy to recognize and respond to. The other player quickly learns that cooperation will be rewarded and defection will be punished. Tit-for-tat worked not because it was aggressive or clever, but because it combined fairness with just enough retaliation to make betrayal unprofitable in the long run. And that's the core insight Axelrod helped reveal. In a world with repeated interaction, reciprocity becomes a powerful tool for sustaining cooperation. Even when defection looks tempting in the short term, players who value the future learn to cooperate because tomorrow's payoffs depend on today's behaviors. So, how does this logic of repeated games and reciprocity actually work in international relations? This is the central question for neoliberal institutionalism. While realists often emphasize how the anarchic system leads to conflict, neoliberal institutionalists argue that even in anarchy, states can achieve lasting cooperation when they have shared interests. They contend that international institutions are the critical tool for making this happen. They argue that institutions help states overcome the fear of defection we see in one-shot games precisely by lengthening the shadow of the future. And they create frameworks for reputation, monitoring, and reciprocity to flourish. Let's look at exactly how states put this theory into practice. First, they use formal institutions. Organizations like the World Trade Organization are designed to help solve the cooperation problem in trade. It does this in three ways that Axelrod would recognize. It lengthens the shadow of the future by turning countless individual trade deals into one continuous long-term relationship. It provides information and monitoring, making it clear who's following the rules and who's cheating. And it facilitates reciprocity, creating a legal framework for countries to retaliate against unfair trade practices. This is real-world, institutionalized tit-for-tat. Second, states build reputations. Alliances like NATO depend on the belief that a promise made today will be honored in a crisis tomorrow. This trust isn't automatic, it's built through interactions. Joint military exercises, shared defense planning, and visible troop deployments all serve as costly signals that build a reputation for reliability and commitment. Costly signals are actions that are difficult to fake, like deploying troops or participating in joint military exercises, and they're often used to demonstrate resolve. When allies consistently demonstrate cooperation, it becomes easier to trust they'll do so when it matters most. And finally, states establish international norms. Beyond formal rules, cooperation is also guided by norms, the shared expectations about appropriate behavior. The norm against using nuclear weapons, the responsibility to protect civilians, or the expectation that countries will participate in climate action all nudges states toward a cooperative path. They don't change the formal payoffs, but they shape the expectations around behavior, reducing uncertainty and increasing the political costs of non-cooperation. In all of these cases, the logic is the same. The expectation of future interactions changes the incentives of the present. When states know they'll be dealing with each other for years to come, long-term reputation can outweigh short-term gains. The shadow of the future makes cooperation not just an act of faith, but a rational, strategic choice. But this entire model, from single-round dilemmas to repeated games, is built on one giant assumption: that players are rational, that they coolly calculate their interests and act to maximize their payoffs. But what if that's not how the real world works? What if leaders are driven by emotion, cognitive biases, or flawed perceptions? In our next video, we'll challenge some of the core assumptions and explore the limits of rationality in international relations. As always, please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.